Good afternoon. I'm now going to call the January 30th, 2024 San Diego County Board of Supervisors special meeting to order. As a reminder, according to the board rules and procedures, audience members shall not whistle, clap, stomp feet, or anything that disrupts the proceeding. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and Supervisor Desmond are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson.
Here.
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Here.
Supervisor Desmond.
Here.
Vice Chair Lawson-Remer.
Hello?
Thank
Did
you.
you call me yet?
Great.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer is here.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas.
Vargas here.
The first item will be for Vice Chair Lawson Remer to make a statement about participating remotely and state whether anyone over the age of 18 is in the room with her, as well as their relationship to the supervisor.
No one over the age of 18 is here, and I had a prior medical appointment.
Thank you. I'll also note that Supervisor Desmond is participating remotely from a county facility that was noticed on the agenda. Since the location was publicly listed on the agenda, Supervisor Desmond is not required to make a statement on the record to participate remotely. Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over the only item on the agenda for today's meeting is our community response and recovery urgency ordinance of the Board of Supervisors of the County of San Diego, exercising the county's police power to prohibit residential evictions without just cause and to enact a delay on certain residential rent increases, fee waivers, contract amendments. So I'm going to turn it over to the team for a presentation regarding the board letter, and then I'll open it up for public comment, and then I'll bring it back to my colleagues.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Vargas and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity today to describe to you the historic flooding event of January 22nd, the impacts to our community, and how the county team is working with and in our communities and with our partners to address the hardships that our families, friends, and neighbors now face. Many people we know are struggling. Some have been displaced. We're working together with an urgency that meets this moment, knowing that our actions can and will make a difference. Today, I'm joined by Brian Albright, Interim Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the Land Use and Environment Group, and Jeff Toney, Director of the county's Office of Emergency Services. While we are here with you today, there are thousands of county workers in action helping to facilitate our community's recovery to the storm. Before we describe to you what we've done so far and what's to come, first, I would like to take a look back at this historical weather event. On January 22nd, a storm passed over our region, bringing widespread rains, causing severe flooding, erosion, debris flows, and mudslides, resulting in numerous persons being displaced and then sheltered, road closures, and extensive damage to both public and private infrastructure. Several areas in the county broke 24-hour precipitation records. Most notably, El Cajon saw 2.74 inches of rain on Monday. The previous record was 2.48 inches in 1909. On January 22nd, the National Weather Service issued wireless emergency alerts to residents in the flash flood warning area, asking residents to take action to protect themselves. After the event, the National Weather Service stated that San Diego experienced its fourth wettest day since 1850. Storms and flooding impacted schools, with numerous districts canceling classes to protect the safety of students and staff. There were power outages in places like Logan Heights, Mountain View, and Lincoln Park areas. Wastewater infrastructure was taxed, and there were 11 reported sewage spills throughout the region. The winter storm has affected the County of San Diego, with multiple communities and highways experiencing historic flooding. Here you can see the volume and speed of the rainfall overwhelmed roads and caused people to be stranded in vehicles and roads to be impassable. And tragically, there were 3 deaths that are currently under investigation as potentially linked to the extreme weather associated with this flooding event. State Route 78 was fully closed amid flooding that had just last year been closed for months for flooding damage repairs. Firefighters assisted numerous people with rescues. First responders, emergency managers, and road crews throughout the region worked from day one to quickly mitigate the impacts to county residents. County fire crews supported partnering agencies. Our water rescue team performed multiple rescues in Bonita, San Miguel, and surrounding jurisdictions. We supported our neighboring jurisdictions. 3 County Type 1 paramedic engines covering cities of Santee and El Cajon for approximately 5 hours. We assisted San Miguel with coverage, and 2 CAL FIRE hand crews of 37 personnel on day 1 were helping with the flooding in Spring Valley, and numerous crews continue working today. During the first day of the rain event, fire also responded to nearly 50 calls in our own jurisdiction. County Fire is a leader in technical rescues, and their actions saved lives. On this slide, you can see gray dots, which show more than 3,000 damage self-reports received by the county as of 5 p.m. on January 29th. Reports were received from all supervisors' districts. The highest number of damage and major damage reports were in districts 1 and 4. The red dots represent the self-reports that we have categorized as major damage. County data analysts have reviewed nearly 2,800 self-reports and categorized 525 of them as major damage. The blue lines on this map show the boundaries of the supervisors' districts. To categorize reports as major damage, again, 525 of those self-reported, county analysts manually reviewed each report. If they had pictures, they looked for clear evidence that water levels reached 18 inches or higher, as this is one of the criteria used by FEMA to define major damage. If there were no pictures associated with the report, they reviewed the description of the damage for indications that water levels were high, as in the person reported that water reached drawers of furniture or that their roof caved in. In addition to water height, if the description indicated that household members were displaced from their home, that was also counted as a report with major damage. Our data analysis has all damage reports reported through Tuesday evening. And as new self-reports are received, the number of major damage reports is very likely to increase. This zoomed-in version of the previous map shows more clearly the areas highly affected by the storm and flooding. Again, you can see some of the most impacted neighborhoods are within cities, primarily the city of San Diego and National City, as well as places like Spring Valley. At this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to the Office of Emergency Services Director, Jeff Toney, to take a closer look at damage reports. Jeff?
Thank you, Holly. At approximately 1 p.m. on January 22nd, the Office of Emergency Services activated the Emergency Operations Center as flooding reports were received. On the same day, the Interim Chief Administrative Officer of the County of San Diego issued a proclamation of local emergency requesting state and federal disaster assistance, as well as for San Diego to be included in a presidential major disaster declaration. The cities of San Diego and Coronado have also proclaimed local emergencies. On January 23rd, Governor Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency for San Diego County. OES worked with the Red Cross to establish shelters at Lincoln High School in the city of San Diego and Bostonia Recreation Center, supporting displaced residents and their pets. The Emergency Operations Center has held daily calls with all 18 cities, special districts, tribal nations, military installations, and the National Weather Service. We have also held daily calls with our voluntary organizations network, activated our 211 emergency contract and agreement with the San Diego Foundation to handle all monetary donations for this event. The initial damage assessment for public infrastructure is estimated at $90 million across the region. About $4.1 million is estimated for the County of San Diego. So far, nearly 3,000 residents self-reported damage, and of that number, 525 reported major damage, and 1,032 of the roughly 3,000 self-reports said that they had no insurance. 677 reports were from the unincorporated area, with 117 reporting major damage. The largest concentration of damage was in the city of San Diego, with 1,700 reports of damage, 289 reporting major damage. Public works crews have been working to remove debris from roads, drains, and culverts, and there were sinkholes in Spring Valley and Casa de Oro. 13 county facilities were impacted by the storm with nearly $200,000 in estimated damages. The three most impacted facilities were the County Administrative Center, the Hall of Justice, and the Crime Lab. Informing the public is critical during any emergency. The county's Joint Information Center has been working in the Emergency Operations Center to share clear and accessible updates with the public and our own county employees to protect public health and safety, sharing updates about preparedness, cleanup, recovery resources, and much more. Since the Operations Center was activated last Monday, we have shared messages about recovery, cleanup, public health, and storm preparedness through Alert San Diego, social media, the County News Center, the Partner Relay, and through traditional media. We have also ensured information is clear and accessible and have completed over 50 translations in our documented resources. The County Health and Human Services Agency has also provided health and safety resources throughout this response. The Live Well on Wheels mobile offices provided services at 2 pop-up sites prior to the opening of the local assistance center, and public health nurses have provided support at the Lincoln High School shelter. They have also provided personal protective equipment, preventative health advice, and other resources to the community. The Department of Environmental Health and Quality staff immediately started to help protect the public health by contacting more than 53,000 unincorporated county permitted facilities and community contacts to share information about how to self-report damages, how to access health-related disaster and recovery guidance, and we made direct contact with over 50 businesses throughout the region that self-reported damages to offer our assistance. County staff also created guidance documents and an information resource library to provide information to the public on topic areas such as floodwater safety, how to clean up safety after a disaster, mold remediation, hazardous materials disposal, what to do with water wells after a flood, and also food safety. On Sunday, January 29th, the county opened a local assistance center located at the Spring Valley Library. It will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. through at least Wednesday of this week. Residents can get information from more than a dozen county departments on how to recover from the impact of the floods. Departments include the County Assessor Recorder, Public Works, Behavioral Health, Environmental Health, Animal Services, and more. Affected residents can learn about debris and household waste removal, erosion control, rebuilding permits, and how to replace vital records. Employees from self-sufficiency services like Medi-Cal, CalFresh, and CalWorks are also present. In addition, important public health and safety information is available to inform all residents as they clean up. State agencies such as the DMV, Department of Insurance, the Franchise Tax Board, and the Employment Development Department are also represented. The American Red Cross, 211, San Diego Food Bank, Team Rubicon, SDG&E, and several other nonprofit organizations are also on site in person. In addition to staffing the local assistance center, the Department of Parks and Recreation provided shuttle services for staff and for clients at the Lincoln High School Red Cross shelter. As of 7 p.m. last night, the Assistance Center had 777 households registered, representing over 2,000 individuals. In our emergency proclamation, we requested several state and federal disaster programs, including recovery assistance under the California Disaster Assistance Act, a Small Business Administration declaration, and a presidential major disaster declaration, which would include federal reimbursement for damage to public infrastructure and individual assistance for direct relief for individuals and families affected by this disaster. These requests were amplified by letters from Chairwoman Vargas to the President and from Interim Chief Administrative Officer to the Director of Cal OES on January 26th. And on January 27th, the Cal OES Director, Nancy Ward, informed the county that California Disaster Assistance Act funding would be awarded. On January 29th, 8 FEMA and Small Business Administration damage inspection teams began conducting assessments for both public infrastructure and private damages. Once these inspections conclude, FEMA will decide the appropriate level of federal assistance. I will now turn it over to Brian Albright with the Land Use and Environment Group.
Thank you, Jeff. Multiple communities across the unincorporated region experienced significant impacts from these storms. Fortunately, our county facilities in the unincorporated areas fared well. Homes and businesses in the unincorporated area reported broad damage, including impacts to interior drywall and flooring, as well as exterior siding. At this point, minimal structural damage has been observed in the impacted buildings. However, as homeowners remove water-damaged materials, they may discover additional damages as they bring in professionals to do assessments for repairs. Our county-maintained roads experienced flooding, damages, and debris that blocked the right-of-way. Initial estimates for damage to our roads and infrastructure is approximately $4 million. We had 8 failed culverts, which resulted in sinkholes, as well as overwhelmed drainage channels and clogged storm drain inlets. Our county teams have initiated emergency repairs to these failed culverts. We've also seen 3 sewer spills from infiltration and excessive erosion. Our county parks facilities experienced approximately $3 million in storm damage, including trail and staging area erosion, culvert and bridge damage, and water damage to some buildings. Most of this damage occurred at Sweetwater Regional Park and the Tijuana River Valley Regional Park. 10 agricultural operators in the county have reported damages from the storm, and 6 of these are in the unincorporated area. These damages included crop loss, structural damage, and land damage from erosion. Right after the storm, county staff took immediate action to respond to the most pressing and urgent community needs. On Friday and Saturday, the county stood up a phone bank for staff to make phone calls to residents who were impacted to learn more about their needs and the types of debris they need assistance with, and invited them to visit the local assistance center. County staff were able to reach more than 170 individuals through these efforts. The county also responded by cleaning and repairing storm drain culverts, channels, and inlets, and street sweeping crews removed dirt and debris from the county roadways. County crews have also been hard at work repairing damaged drains and preparing for the upcoming rain later this week, ensuring that the drains remain clear and that the roadways are safe and free of debris. For individuals in unincorporated communities with vehicles destroyed or damaged beyond repair, the county has a program where we will tow the vehicle away and have it recycled at no cost to the owner. Staff have received several requests from vehicle owners to take advantage of this service. Impacted parks and trails will remain closed due to the saturated conditions while our team continues to work to inspect facilities, to assess and conduct necessary cleanup and debris removal. County staff are also visiting agricultural operations with reported impact to help them conduct damage assessments there. As our response operations turn to our recovery mission, county staff have been engaged directly with communities in the unincorporated area to support a range of community needs. County crews have been working to remove private property flood damage debris from roads to ensure public safety. Additionally, the county has deployed an emergency county contractor to enhance our capacity to support these community needs. Our team has also inspected leased facilities to conduct necessary cleanup and debris removal. In addition to our road crew debris removal efforts, we helped support a cleanup and disposal event hosted by Chairwoman Vargas and Supervisor Montgomery Stepp in Spring Valley at New Seasons Church. This event helped community members properly dispose of any possible household hazardous waste that may have been generated from flooding and the other storm damage. Over 85 vehicles participated in this event, filling all 6 of the large disposal bins. Moving forward, our teams are focused on ensuring unincorporated communities are prepared for the next potential wave of storms this week and beyond. We are providing outreach and education materials to the community while staffing the local assistance center to help residents prepare. Additionally, we continue to prepare our roads, our parks, and facilities, and providing sandbags and information to the community in advance of the storm. Our County EOC Public Communications Center that Jeff mentioned is sending out media alerts about how to protect private properties and also promoting the Alert San Diego website that has valuable storm preparation information. County staff are also proactively communicating with agricultural operations in the unincorporated area to share resources and best practices for the upcoming storm. To ensure road safety, county crews continue to inspect and clean channels, storm drain inlets, and county roads. And we have staged equipment, including snowplows and materials, to be ready for additional rain. County facilities are being prepared for the storm, as well as staff working with lessees to have them be prepared as well. And for our county team serving the unincorporated area, I just will say it is definitely an all-hands-on-deck effort, and our team has literally been working around the clock to advance recovery and to prepare for the next storm to support our communities. We appreciate each and every team member for all of their efforts. I'll now hand it back to Holly to conclude.
Thank you, Brian and Jeff, and really to the entire county team who've been working hard to assist our community during this challenging time. While disaster response is intensive, it's also short-lived compared to the long journey of recovery. We're learning more each day about the needs of people impacted by this disaster. The top 5 areas of need, as expressed by residents through the local assistance center intake form, representing 843 households, were cleaning supplies, food and water, hygiene supplies, bedding, and tools and building materials. We're committed to continuing our collaborative approach to addressing the needs of our community, and this concludes our presentation. We're available for your questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn over public comment, and we're going to do.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. Before we begin public comment, I'd also like to note for the record that an errata has been distributed to the board and posted online that made certain revisions to the attachments A and B. The copies of that errata are also available at the front of the chamber for the public. We have 25 requests to speak on this item, 14 in person and 11 requesting to speak by phone. Also note for the record that we received 30 e-comments, 17 in favor, 12 in opposition, and 1 neutral. Because of the volume of speakers, we're going to limit public comment to 1 minute per person, so I'll ask you to please keep your comments to 1 minute. Any members of the public that requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial in to the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with those in favor of this item. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'll be calling you in groups of 5, so I'll ask you to please listen for your name. I'd like to invite forward Dion Akers, Veronica Macedo, Christina Buckner, Barry Pollard, and Melissa Hernandez. If I've called your name, please come forward. Again, you'll have 1 minute to address the board, and I will ask you to please state your name for the audio record. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Veronica Macedo with the Chicano Federation. I'm here in support of the board. We saw firsthand the damage that this flood had. We have 25 tenants, over 60 people that were displaced in our properties, including a 10-day-old baby. And we're doing everything that we can to support these families to get them back on their feet, and just seeing the devastation. So I don't think we need to add to their struggle and loss and grief that they're going through right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Christina Buckner. I am with the Hip Hop Health and Wellness nonprofit, as well as representing the collaborative effort from a few other nonprofits who are working together as well, the Harvard Family Foundation, and a few other collaboratives. We've been on ground since day one. There are a lot of people who are still in their homes. They don't want to be removed because they don't want to leave their homes. We have scaled over 300, I think, is our count right now as far as assessments. I don't know how we got over the city's count, but we have a lot of people on ground. We also are putting out, over 600 meals a day through our collaborative efforts from other associations that have teamed up with us. I don't know if you guys currently know we are at the Y. Long story short, we need this to pass because we have boundary lines that have been going on with the city. I don't know if you guys are familiar with 42nd Street. That street is 2 separate boundaries. One side was told to get flood insurance, the other one was not. It's not their fault. So much more. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Vargas and Honorable Supervisors. My name is Dion Akers here on behalf of San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria to express our support for item 1 on today's agenda. As we've discussed last Monday, dropped a staggering 2.73 inches of rain in our region. the fourth wettest day in San Diego's history. This caused catastrophic flooding to residents' homes, businesses, and public infrastructure, with certain communities along the Choice Creek watershed and Tijuana River Valley hit particularly hard. The $10 million in emergency funding you are allocating today will provide critical support for the most urgent needs and provide emergency assistance to communities flooded by last Monday's storm. With that said, the city requests your support in ensuring that these resources, if approved, can support residents not just in the unincorporated area, but in our hard-hit communities as well, such as Southcrest, Mountain View, Mount Hope, Encanto, Shelltown, and Rolando. We also ask for your consideration of local resources, of establishing a local resource center in the city of San Diego, similar to what you've set up in Spring Valley. And lastly, that we ask that you direct county staff to consider allowing the county's Homeowner Relief Act funding to cover permit costs in cities with significant storm damage outside of incorporated area. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the remaining speakers in favor: Brian Hawkins, Tasha Williamson, Tuez Wangub, Dwayne Harvey, Samuel Shoy, Mark, and Levi Giafaglione. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Hernandez, and I'm here representing District 1, 4, and I'm also now representing 9. I want to keep it short. I don't want this to be a repetitive ask. We really need you to pass this budget because of the simple fact that I am consistently dealing with tenants who are more concerned of longevity to see what's going to happen. Their concerns is causing more stress to the fact that we already have another storm on the way. Well, we don't know exactly if it's a storm, but it's more rain. So it's just causing a lot of stress, and they just want to know the longevity of what's going to happen, how they're going to get assisted, other than being already ripped out of their homes and eating strangers' foods and just going outside of their diets and their needs. These people really need the support services that all the organizations in Southeast San Diego, especially District 4, is all getting together, and they're coming in. So help us.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Barry Pollard. I live in District 4 as well. I run a nonprofit there, and I've got a couple of specific requests. One is displacement after the crisis. Please ensure that they're coordinating with the Sheriff's Department to sort of mitigate any potential eviction or rent increases. Extension of the hotel funds that are scheduled to terminate tomorrow on the 31st. Waive the normal process of evictions. And lastly, having a county rep on site of the Jackie Robinson Y and other rescue centers would be extremely useful to the people that are walking in looking for services. Lastly, but certainly not least, there's going to be a huge mental health effort that's going to be needed once this is over and you start talking to the residents as well as the workers. Working in this environment is very stressful, and I got to tell you, it's going to be needed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Brian Hawkins. I drive 2 hours, 8 minutes every day one way to come out here. I don't live in San Diego. I'm actually an elected official in San Jacinto, Riverside County, but I grew up in Southeast San Diego. I got family members, friends that were affected by this. And every day I come out here, every day, and I work 70, 80 hours a week in the medical field. I'm tired, but I refuse to give up on the people that, one, elected me in my city, but then also I represent, just all the people, all of humanity. And to see what people are going through on a day-to-day basis, to see them struggling, to see them suffering, to see people not wanting to leave their home but lost everything, this is important. So I encourage you to pass this. I encourage you to get behind, the people of San Jacinto. The people of San Diego. God, I forgot that I'm not even in my own city, but, because I'm on no sleep right now. And I refuse to sleep until people get homes, people get housed, people get the help that they need. And so please pass this and be compassionate on the people that's not in your district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tuez Wangolo. I live on 66th Street, High Monica. A lot of people have been devastated with all this. Most of it of no fault of their own. They need help. We thank you for all that you're doing, but you can help by some immediate response Like me, my house was submerged. I have the videos with Tasha and Dwayne. But on 66th Street and Cantor area, the whole places were flooded. My home all the way to the stop sign. We could use like a voucher to go live in a hotel. I'm a dad, a family of 6, one son, San Diego State, one son in another place, one daughter, Lincoln High. And we could use a voucher so we can go to take a shower, just one room in a hotel, take a shower as a place to, from school and stuff like that before you can come home to do the cleanup. Thank you guys for what you're doing.
Next speaker,
Please
please.
pass this. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Tasha Williamson. I am the Emergency Response Liaison for Southeast Disaster Response Team, headquartered at Jackie Robinson YMCA, led by Harvey Family Foundation. We have served 15 blocks of residents in San Diego, and the number is growing. We have people evicted yesterday that we housed in motels. They need this eviction moratorium. Over 150 people are being displaced since Tuesday. The individuals and families have experienced a devastating disaster and need help. Please ensure that this is an eviction moratorium, money to help with the rebuild, recovery, property damage. Neighborhoods have band together to save each other, to help each other, to stand together. As one San Diego, we must all step up to help our neighbors in San Diego County. This is a human rights crisis happening to our brothers and sisters with your eyes wide open.
Thank you. Next speaker.
How you doing? I'm Dwayne Harvey with Harvey Family Foundation. We're also in the, as Tasha was speaking, that we're in this coalition Southeast Disaster Response Team. We're at Jackie Robinson YMCA. Just here to show you we're in favor of this, this agenda item. It's so important that you guys pass this thing. We're boots on the ground, and we need everybody's help. We need everybody's help, so let's get it done. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Samuel Troy. I'm with Alliance San Diego, here to speak in favor of this urgent action brought forward by Chair Vargas and Supervisor Montgomery Stepp. Our offices in Barrio Logan were flooded after last week's storm, along with many businesses and homes in neighborhoods that were historically underinvested when it comes to infrastructure. This week, our team canvassed some of the most impacted neighborhoods in Districts 1 and 4 and witnessed so much devastation and despair. We encountered seniors trapped in water-damaged homes, afraid of what's to come in the upcoming storm, and we help immigrants fill out surveys and find assistance. What's clear now is that it's not only a natural disaster, but it was a planning disaster. The patterns of destruction were a feature of environmental and structural racism, and these actions today are important steps toward that long process of recovery. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Levi Giafligoni. I came here today to speak for our fellow San Diegans. And I'm in support of this measure. I would like to see moving forward, though, an item number regarding prevention. One of the hardest things about this is our undeniable housing shortage. That compounded with low wages. I'm sure that many of these people who lost their homes this week did not have market rate rents plus market rate deposits saved up. I heavily encourage you to push this through, but housing is going to be the answer for all of these people's next steps. So please do everything that we can to fast track that. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the speakers in opposition, Melanie Woods and Gambler. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Section 3. My name is Mark. Section 3 does irreparable damage to landlords who depend on rent for their very survival and payment of property tax. So your ordinance will cause said landlords to lose their property through no fault of their own, caused by city officials' negligence in supplying adequate drainage or clearing drains, 3D printing emergency rooms with a common area for eating, restrooms, and charging stations to help flood victim tenants for free without subsidizing rents by taxpayers would be a good thing. So you won't do it. Instead, you will get money for your corporation, which we taxpayers will pay for via state or federal taxes. Recommendation 4, fees waived, but we taxpayers will still pay. Why don't you just make it free? And finally, to show what a scam the supervisors are, a quote from Section 8, severability. The Board of Supervisors hereby declares that it would have passed this ordinance in each section, subsection, clause, or phrase thereof, irrespective of the fact that one or more other sections, subsections, clauses, or phrases may be declared invalid or unconstitutional. I repeat, they declare themselves. They do it even if it was unconstitutional.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Melanie Woods with the California Apartment Association. We agree with the intent of the ordinance to protect those who have suffered loss because of the storm. But this is government overreach. The county does not have the authority to enact sweeping moratoriums and rent freezes in unincorporated cities. Government Code 3634 has been interpreted to allow counties to apply their emergency rules into cities, but this only applies to orders and regulations necessary to provide for the protections of life and property. Rent freezes simply do not meet this threshold, and it should be left to the individual cities to take necessary action. We also disagree with several of the definitions as written. Unfortunately, the way economic loss is defined is too broad and too vague. Personal economic consequences directly or indirectly caused by the flood is nearly impossible to define. This vagueness and uncertainty hurts both property owners and tenants. Clear definitions will help both groups move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Gambler here. Look, I like everyone thinking that this was just a freak accident and all that stuff took place. Yes, the weather does happen. But the thing is, I found out when I went to the city council meeting that we've had reports for years, since 2020, regarding on our drainage system and how it needed to be drastically fixed. But instead of that, we decided to put in bike lanes. We decided to cut lanes of traffic. We ignored the people so that we could flood them out, make them lose their houses so that we could buy it, so that we can build these stupid little projects that you have all over the place. I'm just really, really freaking curious. Nora, I think you should pay attention to this, or don't, because it is quite possible that I can get you out of here.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'll remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll start with our first caller.
Good afternoon, Molly Kirkland with the Southern California Rental Housing Association, calling to oppose the eviction moratorium and rent cap only. The region already has emergency protections in place, and the focus should continue to be on getting funding and targeting resources for impacted properties. We're concerned with certain definitions and some unrealistic requirements. Let's go through those quickly. The ordinance references CPI changes from April to April. San Diego uses a March to March figure per state law. The definition for just cause and imminent health and safety threat does not include language related to threatening behavior or criminal activity which impacts the resident. You prohibit terminating tenancy if a landlord knows or reasonably should have known the tenant suffered a loss. There is no requirement to communicate that or document it. There's a plethora of definitions that really just don't work for either side, and we think clarity is needed. Unfortunately, we can't support that component today, and we respectfully ask for your no vote on this, but pledge to help with education and outreach. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
available. It's good that the supervisors want to get serious about the renters and evictees about a week late, but just in time for the next storm. Community outreach meetings to understand emergency needs of time. Scanning MSN.com news might get you too. Before the next storm, please consider installing some kind of mesh or grating above the storm drains and culverts, especially on slopes of houses where it might overflow on them directly. Even regular debris cleaning work as in the El Cajon. The crash situation as well as the infrastructure has been badly neglected. Do we need more no littering signs or maybe more public trash cans? Movable fish should be eligible for fee waiver, not just...
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hi, my name is Juliana. I'm a policy advocate at Youth Will, and I'm a resident of C4. We understand that natural disasters are inevitable, but taking actions such as investing in infrastructure, especially in communities where it's historically been not invested as much, and then now taking the steps that need to be taken to help those communities by approving the ordinance to prohibit evictions and rental increases. Right now, what I think should be on the minds of the Board of Supervisors are policy actions that where humanity is at the top of your priorities, so we can hear from all the other community members speaking. Basic needs is all that they're asking for, and yeah, I'm in support of the approval of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller. Next caller is Consuelo. Your device might be muted.
This government is not a government for the people. Just take a look outside. No need to look far either. There's no progress for the people. They're a corporation. We are simply collateral to them. They want you stressed, distracted, and desperate for help, their help. They're supposed to work for the people. They have so much of our money already, yet the people continue blindly trusting this government. Stop begging them and start demanding better. They work for us. Normal isn't coming back. So get off your knees, because I assure you, what government has planned is far worse than anything they've already done. What we allow will simply continue. When will you get it?
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Oliver Twist here in opposition. Providing help is essential, but doing so via emergency powers is not the answer. Use an incentivized carrot approach, not a stick approach. You mentioned 60 days, but I also remember the COVID emergency, originally for 7 days, then expanded to 30, and then dragged on for over 3 years. Also, much of this devastation was avoidable. At the San Diego City Council meeting on June 12th, item 200 was setting the 2024 budget. They voted unanimously to spend things like $3.5 million for a smart streetlights program, $1.5 million for a traffic calming truck route, and $3 million to fund the World Design Center with Tijuana. The Southcrest disaster injustice lies squarely on the shoulders of Mayor Gloria and those on the council at that time. You elevated political wants over real-world needs, and the poorest residents paid the price. And shame on you, Nora, for imposing a 1-minute limit on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Anthony Tricarico. I live at the intersection of 38th Street and Beta Street. I have 12 apartments over here. They were all destroyed. They're full of contamination. I've already spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to get mud off my properties, having inspections for mold, mildew, etc. I am strongly opposed to what's going on. I've had an agitator come over here and threaten me. I'm 76 years old, a disabled combat veteran. I've had 2 heart surgeries. I saw my life go upside down on Monday. My income went down to 0, and I can't take on Joe Biden's responsibilities. He is the #1 cause of all this. He is a traitor. He should be put in prison. We would be in far better condition.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Unfortunately, this is not a natural disaster. This is weather manipulation happening on a massive scale, and disaster relief is very lucrative. You guys failed to prevent this from happening. You want to be the hero. There was no money spent to fix the roads or clear the culverts or the storm drains like people were asking and begging and pleading to. And you should have been preparing for this, like you should be preparing for the storm that's to come. What are you going to do that when there is more rain? And using ARPA funds, this has nothing to do with COVID, but you're probably going to say because you are giving PPEs, the test for COVID, masks, and the lock zone during this time, which is probably the least concern of the people. You should be helping them with other things, but you should be preparing. You shouldn't just pretend to be the hero and come up and do stuff after the fact. You need to be preparing in the future so this doesn't happen, but it's very lucrative, and you guys love to pretend that you are here to save the day when you could have prevented this in the first place. So, you know, this is very telling of what's going on in the county and across the county, and you need to be more.
Thank you. For the record, that speaker was Audra. We'll now hear from the next caller.
It's truth. 1 minute proves that none of you really care. Same as at the San Diego City Council, where storm survivors also got 1 minute to talk about criminal negligence. Instead of taking 10 million American Ruination Plan X debt dollars from the public defender, which poor people need, 6 million ARPA debt dollars plus 1 million a month should be taken from Joel's shelters, transportation, debit cards, and tax toys for people who cross our borders illegally. Every single penny of that American taxpayer money should be going to our American people struggling to survive the devastation of this storm damage. Damage that should have been prevented with proper clearing of the channels that residents alerted the city to. Equity is another broken promise, just like fixing the roads. And how much of this money will go to the 3 consultants? Recommendation 3 is intentionally vague to control people's property. And there should have already been a closer area than Spring Valley for people to get aid and resources. That's a county failure. Here's the real plan. Dump Todd Gloria and these supervisors with pet projects that don't even benefit the American people. Criminals and...
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. I want to keep it short. I think there's a lot of discussion I think that we will probably be having, but I want to just very quickly say, first and foremost, thank you to all the speakers that came today in support. You really, all of you have been boots on the ground, and there's so many other folks that have sent us comments. I've been on the ground all week in each one of our communities, and I've seen the best of San Diegans. What I have seen is, you know, the gentleman who is with his car driving down 48th Street, opening up the cart, giving people burritos and water because he knows that the people in those homes no longer have water, access to food and electricity, all of their belongings that they have had for 40 years outside. And, you know, you saw some of the pictures on here, but truly, unless you are there, I don't think you can see it or smell it or feel it. And, you know, I think we hear a lot about natural disasters. We've faced a lot of natural disasters in this community. And like I said to someone, right, it's not like a fire. A fire, you see the flames. A fire, you see, and everybody stands up, and the community is out there wanting to help. This you can't see unless you live in these communities, unless you know these communities, unless you come to our communities. And the communities most impacted are the communities that have been underinvested for decades south of the 8th, and that's not okay. And as the safety net for our communities, we have a responsibility not only to focus on recovery, but we need to make sure that we also help people rebuild. And so I hope that we don't make this conversation political. I understand how difficult it is sometimes to have the courage to take tough positions, but I ask you to really think about the humanity, about the folks that for decades saved so much money to buy their house, and a natural disaster has just completely destroyed not only their lives, but their dreams. And so I want to make a motion to support this board letter, this recommendations to our board. There's a lot of work that we need to do on recovery. I want to particularly thank our OAS office. On Monday night when I was on the phone with the CAO and with our folks calling for an emergency, the governor, everybody has been boots on the ground, and this county team has done an exceptional job as well. So I appreciate you. I thank you. This is only the beginning of all the work that we're going to be doing, but I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done. And then last but not least, I want to thank my partner in this process, who has been Supervisor Montgomery Stepp. It's not okay. So with that, I make a motion.
We love you, Laura.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be short too. I have a lot in front of me about the data that we know over and over and over. We tell that story about how you could look at the impacted neighborhoods and you could overlay redlining, you can overlay our Cal Enviro screen, you can overlay our climate index, and it's the same areas. We know that. I think what is important about today is that we have an opportunity to begin a process where we tell that story and then we do something about it. That's the opportunity. We have an opportunity to not just say how bad it is, but to begin the work on doing what we are supposed to do. I believe, as elected officials, is to take care of the people that are there who are living in the areas that have been underserved, overlooked for so long, but have contributed the richness that we have, that is San Diego, to, and we have all benefited from the people in the communities right now that are trying to figure out how to survive by no fault of their own at all. And so I would invite everyone, especially those who are opposed, to go down and look and volunteer. I'll be at the Y tomorrow morning at 8:30. Before you get up here and speak on it, seriously. And I also want to acknowledge there has been a history of disinvestment. We know that. Thank you, Chair Vargas. Thank you for your courage. I know we've just been working around the clock and having to be all things. I am in a particularly tough position. I'm going to be obedient to the community last night who told me don't fight, just do what you can. I just want to let you all know the majority of the County District 4 is within the city of San Diego, and I'm doing everything I can, and I'll leave it there. I have to thank county staff who have been up 24 hours working on this. All of you have. Jackie Robinson YMCA, Hip Hop 5K, Harvey Family Foundation, the Carpenters Local 619, Pillars of the Community, Labor Council, SCG&E, the Faith Community, all the volunteers, Chicano Federation, Urban Collaborative. I know I'm missing people, but I have to shout those names out because at this point, people are risking their lives to help their neighbor. And that's a very real thing. And our interim CAO, 1 week on the job. 2 weeks, okay. Thank you very much. I will second the motion and I'll try to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer.
Thank you so much. First, I just want to thank my colleagues for all the work that you've been doing the last few weeks since this storm hit. It's truly devastating, that so many people in our community are left with nothing. I mean, honestly, you look at these photos, you walk around the streets, and we see people who are displaced, are homeless, and if we don't step in to do something, we're going to have not just a crisis of homelessness, but a health crisis. There's just so many implications and ramifications. And when I think about, what is the purpose of government? What is the purpose of the county in the first place? I think fundamentally it's to allow us to come together in these kinds of moments, to be there for each other, and to be that safety net for people who, through no fault of their own, have been decimated and their lives have been decimated. And we have to do everything we can to help. So I first want to say I appreciate you both bringing this forward. I just have a couple comments and a couple questions. One, I do know that we are continuing to seek reimbursement and support from FEMA and from the Small Business Administration. So I know that those efforts are going to continue. And my request to the CAO and to county staff is to really do everything we can to get reimbursed and to get some support and some assistance from the federal government, because we cannot do this alone. So that would be just something I know we're already working on, but it's really, really important. The second thing I would say is I think I appreciate the piece of this proposal that asks the CAO to consult and to figure out what else, what more and what additional measures might need to be done beyond what's outlined here. I think these fee waivers are important, but I do think we're going to have to take a careful look at whether there's individuals, homeowners who don't have flood insurance and need more than a fee waiver and don't have anywhere else to go. And so we're going to have to continue looking at that. I think the third thing I just wanted to clarify in terms of reading this, so I would happy for either or both authors of the motion to address this question. I just want to clarify that the ordinance regarding renters, both that was attached as one of the recommendations, only is number one, it's only for 60 days, so it's temporary. And number two, it's only applicable for in areas that were impacted by the flood, those zip codes that were listed. Is that correct?
Yes, but I'll ask our legal counsel to also follow up with you.
That is correct. The term of the ordinance is for 60 days after, when it's effective for 60 days after adoption. And the enumerated zip codes were also, there was 2 additional added through the errata, but that is the area of applicability.
Great. So that was one of the questions that came in from some people. So all the just cause eviction and the cap on rental increases is only applicable to those areas. Just to clarify, that's correct, right, Claudia?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And then I think there was some concern shared with me that potentially some of the language might have been a little ambiguous and might make it difficult, or might I know one of the folks who was testifying said that they were concerned it might be an overreach. I was just hoping you could address that. I think my understanding was that the purpose here, or the intent, was to ensure that this applied only to individuals and households that have suffered hardships and are dealing with the flood. But I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about ensuring that we're in, compliance with what's, within the scope of the county's authority and we're not overstepping.
Through the chair. So certainly under the California Emergency Services Act, we can adopt an ordinance that is countywide applicable, that can govern over the incorporated cities, such as this one. It is narrowly tailored in identifying the areas affected through the flood damage area, through the enumerated zip codes, as well as the economic loss question that, or one of the speakers raised that you've referenced. That definition is tied to that has to be directly or indirectly caused by the flood. For example, damage to the tenant's property or to the residential unit itself, or need to relocate for damage. So there is a definition that is tangible and easy to understand, and it is narrowly tailored to address those who've been negatively impacted, financially, economically harmed from the flood.
That's helpful. I think when you say a landlord should know or should reasonably know that their tenant has been suffered an economic loss, I take that to mean, hey, you're a landlord. If your building was flooded out. If people can't get to work because there's couches and debris in the street. Like, we know those things. So that's what we're really talking about, is making sure that if this is pretty obvious, that it's on. We're not going to be kicking people out of their homes. I said as a statement, but that really was a question just to the intent of the authors, to my colleagues.
Yes, that's my understanding, Supervisor.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to need to do more. I think when I look at this situation with the floods, it makes me think about the kind of risk we face with fires that could be coming, and how do we ensure that we're thinking ahead and thinking about what recovery looks like in case of any natural disasters, especially with climate change and more extreme weather events and flooding and fires. And, this is going to happen again. So I'm happy to support this today. And I do intend to work on thinking about the future and what we need to do about a recovery fund, or being prepared with better insurance options for landlords and for renters who face natural disasters in this region, because this is something that we need to get ahead of, and need to be prepared for the next time, because with climate change, it's going to become an increasing issue here in our region. So thank you both, and happy to support today.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and appreciate all the comments here today. I want to acknowledge, all the devastation and the loss that was the storm brought upon our communities. My thoughts go out to unfortunately, the 3 people who lost their lives and their families, and everyone who had their lives uprooted over the last week. And again, thanks to all of our first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, public works staff, everybody that's been pitching in and helping out in this effort. I do have I guess for our county council, so you're comfortable with I guess it's item number 2, that we can put a eviction moratorium on cities as long as it's very narrowly focused to the storm damage. Is that, so you're comfortable with that, even though it's not our jurisdiction?
Thank you, Council Member. This is a prevention against without just cause evictions, and based on the California Emergency Services Act and our success defending on the same basis with the prior similar ordinance during COVID, yes, we are comfortable that we have the authority to do this.
Okay, then one of the things I see in item 3 is to direct our Chief Administrative Officer, interim administrative office, to come back with a plan to avoid unjust evictions and provide rental or other assistance to those affected by the storm. I'd like to also include landlords in there. I mean, we heard from that landlord that called in and said he's not collecting any rent. And I don't believe that he really wants to, evict anybody. But if we're going to look at people that are economically impacted by the storm, we shouldn't limit it to only tenants. Maybe businesses, or maybe, but in particular landlords. There's 2 sides to that coin. And I remember during COVID, we had a lot of pushback from landlords who weren't collecting rent, and they weren't getting bailed out. So I would like to see that coming forward in item 3. And one of the things I'm actually struck.
Supervisor Desmond?
Yes.
Just want to make sure that we clarify that it does include landlords already, but if you want it to be very specific, I'm happy to add that in there.
Well, I think it says, let's see, rental assistance.
Let me turn it over to the
Well, I still haven't finished my comments.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that you had the answer to your question.
Well, I guess, is there enough information or staff direction to make sure that hopefully we at least include the landlords as part of the rental assistance and those, I guess, or to other assistance by those affected by the storm? I just would like to have specifically landlords included in that.
We'll be happy
And I know
to do that, Supervisor.
Okay. One of the things that I guess just overall in this whole thing, in recommendation number 1, I understand, I don't quite understand, the expansion of these contracts. We have these contracts in place with these 3 different entities. Well, except for the Legal Aid Society, but Equus to do that, and Haggerty Consultant. I'm not really in favor of the legal aid, of getting more money to legal aid. I'd rather have a better system that works for all, as opposed to paying for other people's attorneys so they can sue each other over this. If we have a good enough plan, I don't think we need the Legal Aid Society, or be paying for legal aid for people. But I really, what I don't understand in this effect is, we've got these plans in place already at the county in the unincorporated area. And what we're being asked to do is, and what we heard from today, most of the speakers were from the city of San Diego, not the unincorporated area of San Diego County. Now, there has been some damage in San Diego County, but we're able to handle and waive those permit fees and things like that. But what I'm concerned about is taking on the burden of what other cities should be providing for themselves. I think a lot of this devastation within the city of San Diego was due to lack of proper drainage and infrastructure within the city of San Diego, and a lot of deferred maintenance that maybe could have, prevented some of these, some of the disasters that happened. So, I'm open to expanding some of these contracts for the unincorporated area, but trying to be all things to all people and picking up where the cities are falling short. I think I'd be better off. I think we'd be better off giving them a loan, as opposed to accepting and taking on the responsibilities of what the cities should be doing in their jurisdictions, instead of us coming in and being responsible. Because I think that's a bad precedent for future storms, that the county is going to come in with money, and so the city can keep deferring maintenance and not really be able to come to the table when a catastrophe hits. So I'm not, item 2, I'm was concerned about, I guess, with the our reach or overreach. And I let's see, I want to, I also note National City, just declared a state of emergency of their own last night. And if they wanted to implement a eviction moratorium in their jurisdiction, they could. And so could the city of San Diego. Why we're doing it for them is perplexing to me. I realize we want to help our neighbors out. We want to help people out when they have need, but we also got to make sure that other entities that should be providing this help and service to their residents, just like we are doing it for the unincorporated areas, should be doing that for themselves. And with the $10 million, I'm okay with allocating some of that money to get people back on their feet, especially in the unincorporated area, in the communities such as Spring Valley, where this, essentially we're the government for them. The city of San Diego and other communities have their own ARPA dollars. They have their own money for emergencies. They have their own emergency operations centers. They have their own police and fire. But then, I'm opposed to funding or taking on the responsibilities of these jurisdictions. And like I said, I'm okay loaning dollars, but we shouldn't be taking on their responsibilities. I really can't believe that we got that letter from Mayor Gloria asking the county to fund city permit waivers and housing. So they want us to fund, they want to be able to waive permits, but have for their residents, but have the county pay for those permit fees so that the city is made whole and the county is not. I just find that ridiculous, asking the county to fund permits that the city, they could waive themselves, but they want us to backfill that. I mean, to me, that's ridiculous. So, I'm willing to help those in need. I'll vote in favor of this item today, but I really do think we got to look at other cities and jurisdictions taking on their responsibilities, keeping their own infrastructure, their own drainage, their own people. You know, the city is also asking us to set up another one of our resource sites that we set up in Spring Valley. They want us to set one up in the city. Well, they can set up their own in the city. So I really think this is a lack of I don't know, just asking us a little bit above and beyond taking on their responsibilities. I think in the future, giving them a loan so they could do their responsibilities and getting paid back would be the better course to take and the more responsible, because I think this is a bad precedent. So then they can just say, well, the county's going to pick up the problem next time. So I'll go along with it today, but I really think this is a bad precedent, and we gotta push against these entities that aren't taking care of their own.
Heaven will be waiting for you, sir. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Montgomery.
Just real quick, Chair, I wanted to make sure the public knew that I did make a request to the Director of Cal OES, and she will be submitting a letter to the banking industry urging the banks to provide relief for homeowners during this time who are in a position of having to pay a mortgage but aren't able to live in their home. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really want to support this. I have a lot of questions. And I thought in the presentation we would be going through each recommendation of what it does and why we need to do it. And instead it's been sporadic questions. Is it possible to have staff go through this? There are 12 recommendations. I'd like to know what the goal of the recommendations are. If I piecemeal through it, I think it's going to take a lot longer.
So,
well, I'd just like to have a presentation that walks us through exactly what recommendation 1 is going to do, what recommendation 2 is going to do, what recommendations 3. So, for example, in recommendation 1, we have 3 organizations that are working there now, and we're talking about increasing the dollar amount, but we don't know what it's going to be increased by to each organization. What's the criteria of how they get the increase? And we know we have Red Cross and others who are out there doing similar things. What are we doing to make sure that we're not competing with the Red Cross? So if it's possible to have somebody present each item on the recommendations, there's a lot of meat on these bones, and I just want to make sure I fully understand. I want to help these people, but I don't want to spend money or waste time that doesn't lead to improving their life. And so if we could go through that.
I'm going to have the interim CAO go through them. I think, unfortunately, we have a time issue, but go ahead.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Supervisor Anderson, happy to provide some additional context as it relates to the recommendations from the Chairwoman and Supervisor Montgomery Step. As we're looking at the first recommendation before us, you're absolutely correct. It would be to expand the current contracts that we have. So when we're looking at the first one, so 1A, it would be for the hotel vouchers and potential housing that would be beyond the time frame that we work with Red Cross, who is there for that immediate, for purposes of the congregate shelter that we have, for the response period. But really looking at those who may be displaced for longer than what would be response, going into a longer recovery, similar to what we've seen in past situations. That's what that first one would be.
But do we know what kind of dollar amount we're going to be spending on this, or the number of days that we're thinking in terms of?
Not right now. I mean, what we're looking at for purposes of the proposal would be 30 days for purposes of the housing, the shelter, and then really working with the state, because we want to ensure that as much as possible we are, as mentioned before, eligible for the state reimbursement. So working with the state to come up with the parameters. But one of the things that we're envisioning is that after the 30 days, or as we're reaching the 30 days, we're going to reevaluate each individual situation and see if there is the need for additional housing.
And on that, do we have a dollar amount that we're thinking in terms that we're willing to spend?
So I think, Supervisor, the challenge that we have here is that, you know, I invite you to come with me to see some of these homes.
Oh,
There is a,
I've seen homes.
let me tell you why. Because
I've seen disasters.
the problem is that we don't know actually, we don't have a final number. And one of the things that we're doing with asking people to go through Alert San Diego is to capture all this data. I think the team can share with you that so far we've had over 2,800 people fill out the forms and tell us some of the biggest challenges that they're having. And so each of these items that we put in here is based on the fact that when you think about Cal OAS and FEMA and some of the work that's taking place locally, there is the missing piece about, you know, how do we help people immediately now, right? Because as we're trying to get all the resources and everything else that we need. And so if you look at each of these points, it was really thought out thoughtfully so that we can make sure that we can get the vouchers to people in people's hands today, because right now there are people living in houses where there's mold, where there's, you know, things are falling, where our volunteers are in a situation where people who don't know anything about construction are putting their lives at risk. People have been going to the hospital who are volunteers. And so we felt it was important that we are able to expand. And part of the goal here is that we're working so closely with the CAO that nobody's going to write a blank check just to say, all right, let's go, let's do this. It's really so that we don't have to do another special meeting and say, okay, we're only going to spend
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to do as many special meetings as necessary to address this. But throwing money and not having a plan that's thorough, we got this yesterday in my office yesterday. We went through it, we've had some meetings, we've done chasing. We can't speak because of the Brown Act. So I can't just walk into your office. And so this is my only forum to have these answered. My constituents and who I represent and the victims in my district deserve to have these answers. And that's why I want to do it. And I'm not on your timetable. I'm on the people's timetable. So I will take as long as I need to make sure I fully understand this, because I want to get to yes. So going back to this, one of the concerns I have, and I want to understand how we're moving forward with it, is some of this is going to be, I want to help people in the short run. And getting people into housing is terrific. But if I had a house and it was at the end of a drainage that was not well maintained in the city, and I'm going to be suing the city over it, is there any mechanism for the taxpayers in the unincorporated or the taxpayers to recoup some of the money? I don't think anybody who's going through this is a grifter and trying to take advantage of the system. But on the same token, every time a city, a municipality refuses to do their infrastructure, I can't be liable for it. And by the way, before I go any longer, I should have started off with this. Kudos to county staff. It wasn't too long ago that we had our own set of issues with infrastructure in the amount of time and effort we put in. I was shocked to see, pleasantly shocked, delighted to see that we didn't have nearly the claims in my district that we've had in past rainstorms. And so I just want to say kudos to the county, kudos to the supervisors before me who invested in the infrastructure to protect our constituents. Having said that, disasters are not planned. And so we know that things can happen, but we also know that when we don't take care of our streets and our infrastructure, we're only making it worse. So with that, though, how would that work under those circumstances that we're putting out all this money? How would that, would there be any kind of recovery? And as people sue, do we have anything in there saying that they should be suing to help us recover?
So as far as the lawsuits, whether it be with the city in this particular situation that you're referring to, really we'd need to work closely with county council to be able to come back to you on what that would look like. But for purposes of the funding and the thresholds that you were asking about, that's why we looked at the $10 million figure to say that we will focus and see if there's what the need would be as we're going through the surveys and as FEMA team members, Cal OES team members, and the regional building inspectors are also going into these sites, we will have greater clarity on the level of damage and the dollar figures and the time frame. So
how does the sending building inspectors from the county in to the cities, how does that work?
We would not. Ours would be solely because we're looking at the unincorporated as well as we're discussing this. Our planning and development services building inspectors would solely be in the unincorporated, and that's what they're doing now as they're going side by side and doing the assessments. The other jurisdictions likely have their own inspectors who are doing the same thing as they're making their assessments. So at this juncture, it's very difficult for us to be able to say what the level of need will be for how many days. So we're just investing in putting this funding aside to say up to this level for whatever those purposes and needs might be.
The city of San Diego's population is far greater than the 600,000 live on the unincorporated. So I expect, and we see initially the numbers are greater there, but I expect them to continue to grow. If we are housing people and we're filling the gap, and the city of San Diego decides they're not going to spend one more dime on an additional inspector, and that person isn't able to move back in, whether it's a rental property or because they're not moving on it, how long do you think that we should be paying for a municipality failing to do their job? Because I don't believe that we should be the whipping post. I want to be a good neighbor. I want to be helpful. But I want to make sure that they have skin in the game and that they're motivated. So what protections are there to make sure that they're moving forward with their jobs?
If it would be helpful, we're happy to provide reports to the board for purposes of those assessments as they're occurring, because we will have if approved, the vision for this would be really looking at 30 days for purposes of the hotel vouchers, and then the assessments and the reevaluations as we're looking at those specific scenarios and situations. And then I leave the discussions for purposes of what the cities is something that we are having daily calls with the jurisdictions as well. We can continue that and make sure this is a piece of those discussions.
So would this then, before we fund beyond 30 days, would it come back to this board?
No, we are seeking for the authority to move forward with the programming, so it would not be coming back to the board for additional approvals every 30 days. That's not how it has been anticipated to move forward, but certainly a policy decision for the Board of Supervisors if you'd like to give us different direction than that.
And then in item B, the Legal Aid Society, do we have any idea how much money we're thinking in terms of expanding their
contract?
Mm-hmm.
Not at this juncture, no.
Okay. So, gosh, I really wish we had some estimates because, so much of the legal aid, the concern I have is people are put out of the rental because it's condemned. Everyone's a loser when people just sue each other. I would have liked to have seen some of this money go towards just paying the rent and helping these people move forward in their lives. During COVID, we did pick up the rent for many people in the short run to make sure that nobody was evicted. I think that we went through item 2. Let's see here. Could you walk me through item 3 just quickly?
So this, excuse me, this would really be those discussions with the community, and as Supervisor Desmond was discussing as well, where we would be including landlords, businesses, to really see what is the assistance need so that we are able to come together for purposes of that plan that we would be implementing to be able to help people get back on to their feet, for lack of a better way of describing that, but really expanding it with the discussion that when we're talking about community stakeholders who may need assistance, it could be renters, it could be landlords, it could be businesses who have been impacted by the damage of the storms.
And again, so because the governor declared an emergency, landlords are capped at any rent increases. They can't just double your rent overnight. With the governor's emergency order, is that correct?
I would defer to county council to just confirm that piece.
I know that they have the price gouging limitations, and I did not see any of the limitations. However, the ordinance does specifically address the limitation to the CPI under what's currently allowing, so that can't occur.
Okay, thank you. And then if you wouldn't mind, item 4.
So item 4 is really looking at the permit fees that we have. And this is in alignment, Supervisor Anderson, with really any of the disasters that we've had in the past, where we look at whether it's from the standpoint of hazardous materials or other impacts where Department of Environmental Health and Quality would be waiving the permit fees related to those who are trying to recover, specifically based on damages to their properties due to the storm event that we had.
Would that do anything about speeding up? Would it prioritize people applying for permits or rebuild or any of the things that they need? And, this is over a 5-year period. Why would it be 5 years and not 1 year, or 2 years and not 10 years? Why did we choose 5?
We selected 5 years because it might take some individuals some time to really be able to, whether it's due to the cost of rebuilding, the investments that might be needed for purposes of the improvements, but that can certainly change. It can be 2 years. We just selected that as a time frame that provides individuals with some time, but yet also does not allow it for the longer term to come in for those specific types of improvements that might be needed, but certainly can be less or more years.
Did we look at how we could speed up any kind of permits or any kind of?
We do prioritize those who are rebuilding based on damages. So that has been consistent for our departments as they're recovering from disasters.
Have we asked the cities that we are helping for them to do the same?
These are solely related to those permits that they have to come to the county for.
No, I get it.
Okay.
We're giving money to people who don't live in the unincorporated.
Right.
We don't control them. But they're still suffering. And if the goal is to stop the suffering and to fix this, why wouldn't we reach out to our counterparts and ask them to do the same and pass the same? They're asking for us to pay for waiving their fees, but they're not guaranteeing they're going to do the work in any timely fashion. So I feel like if they're asking us to waive those things, that they should move as quickly as possible. I have a little unique experience. During the Horse Creek fires, I had to change state law twice to extend Prop 13 benefits because we couldn't get permits done. Some of it was because of county fault. Some of it was horrible. People had to rebuild their home, and they found out half their property was in their neighbor's yard, and they couldn't rebuild. But to protect them, because after a certain time frame of rebuild, you lose your Prop 13 reductions. And so that's why I'm specifically asking these questions, because I didn't know that you would lose your Prop 13 if you're rebuilding until I had to write and extend those laws twice. So I would ask that we do that outreach and ask them to meet us halfway. And as we're doing this, at any point have we asked any of the cities to participate financially with us with any kind of matching funds, even if it's a nominal 10%?
We have not currently.
That's not my motion, But I would like to have that added into this, because I think that if we're truly all working together, we all have to have skin in the game and do things to get us there. Item 5, if you wouldn't mind going through that. This is just, so these essentially is the same as 4, but it's for hazmat type items.
Exactly.
And then earlier when I talked to you, you said you thought that most of these would be like auto related.
The ones that had come in so far had been mostly auto-related. So we'll have greater diversity as we continue to move forward and assess the types of damages.
And is that, I don't know, but is that like because of oil?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And then, sorry, I have to keep switching my glasses on and off to. And then for purposes of number 6, it's really about where would these fee waivers be applicable, so that it is very much targeted for those, whether it's the property owners or it's the businesses that are coming through DHQ, to make sure that we have solid data as far as those geographic boundaries where the waivers would be applicable, and partnering with some of the various offices within the county enterprise.
Okay. And 7, I thought was very clear.
Yes, just the resolution that we need for those waivers.
And then 8, if you wouldn't mind going through that.
Certainly. For number 8, the direction here would be for us to really take a look at the Office of Emergency Services needs, looking at response and recovery, and having an assessment of, are there additional facets, aspects, things that we would want to move forward to improve, really a focus on the recovery facet, and to be able to look at recovery, one, from the unincorporated community as a municipality standpoint, but then also as we are the regional emergency services leader on behalf of the entire region, to see where we could work more closely with the various jurisdictions to increase our preparation for the recovery needs for the diversity of the types of disasters that could occur.
So one of the concerns, and I shared it with you privately, but I didn't share it with my colleagues, is I'm nervous for us taking responsibility over things that we don't control. So 18 cities control their own land use. 18 cities control their own infrastructure. 18 cities can either be responsible or not responsible. But if we're liable for all their failure, I'm concerned that financially we can't do it and we're not good neighbors. And so when thinking in terms of how we move forward, we're offering more services to municipalities in this package than I believe we've ever done in the history of the county. And we're taking a completely different path. Each municipality has its own tax base, has its own police department, is responsible for a lot of stuff, and that's never been the county's, because number one priority has been the unincorporated. We're the only government the unincorporated has. If we divert all the resources from the unincorporated, we're leaving them high and dry when they're our primary. But in the same token, we're responsible for every catastrophe. They don't have OES, we have OES. So I get that, but I'm trying to figure out how we can do this in a way that people have skin in the game and that they meet us halfway, that they don't just say, well, we can order as much food as we want at the restaurant because we're not paying. I want everybody to pay something so that people aren't ordering things that they don't plan to eat. When you go through this, and I don't know if this has to be an amendment, but would you look at the potential of a joint power agreement at JPA or any other legal in?
Let me have, do you mind if I go ahead and turn it over to Holly so that you can get the answer? Go ahead.
I was just going to speak to item number 8, Chairwoman. requests a 60-day return. It's investigating what we can do to strengthen recovery capabilities within the Office of Emergency Services, and would just ask if the staff, if OES would be involved in that analysis, if there might be a later return date. That would put us returning on March 12th, and we're in the middle of a disaster response.
I'm not going to change it right now. I mean, we can come back and look at it. We are in an emergency situation, and I understand the reason why this is a special meeting, and I could have turned in this board letter so that we can talk about it next week on February 6th. But we really are in a place right now where our communities are suffering, and so I worked really closely with legal counsel to ensure that every one of these items, both the Supervisor Montgomery Stepp and I did, so that we could go ahead and move forward. But you know, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and keep the timeline that we have because we need to make sure that we move forward. Supervisor Anderson, I know you have a lot of questions, but I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm going to ask a question of council. Under my purview, am I able to? I would like to call the question. I would like to make a motion to call the question at this time. Yep.
Madam Chair,
so I need a second.
We have allowed other supervisors to have their questions done.
But at this time, I think our communities.
Let me just tell you, if you do that, then I'm not comfortable voting yes because you're not allowing me to have my questions answered. This is an emergency.
That you're not going to be
5 minutes
yes anyway.
is not going to make a huge difference. And I took time from my day to be here. I want to make sure my constituents, your constituents, everybody is served. And I'm sorry that you're not patient, but I'm trying to get this done.
No, I'm pretty patient. I wish that all these questions would have been asked because we all get briefed. And I understand.
I could not ask them because, see, part of the question is that you are the author and the co-author. I want you to be able to chime in when you hear it. You can't hear my concerns because you can't talk to me unless it's a public, because we have a Brown Act.
I understand.
This is my way of communicating to 4 board members to ensure that they understand my concerns moving forward. You are fundamentally taking and changing the direction and the responsibilities of the county under this emergency. I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's not stuff that has to necessarily be in the emergency. What I want to know is how much of it is stuff that we're changing today that we can't go back and revisit. I don't think these are unreasonable. I'm not grandstanding on this stuff. I'm simply asking questions. In here, we're talking about fundamentally changing resources to municipalities that we've never, ever done in the history of the county.
Supervisor Anderson, if I could just come back to your question on number 8, I think what you were mentioning is, could we explore whether a JPA would be an opportunity for us? Absolutely. We can look at that through the assessment and really understanding how we thread the needle of the municipality for the unincorporated. Completely hear you.
Look, I'm not married to JPA. I just want to make sure everybody has skin in the game and that we're not liable for people who choose not to lead in their municipality. And I'm not talking about anybody who's currently elected. These things started a long time ago. I just want to make sure moving forward that the county is not the one catching it because no one's making the tough choices. When you choose between a playground and cleaning out your infrastructure so it doesn't flood, those are all tough choices.
Understood. And then on number 9, really to look at the stakeholders and have the outreach as we move forward with the assessment would be the goal and the vision of number 9. On number 10 and number 11, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer for purposes of just guiding us through what those 2 recommendations are, and then I can quickly pick up 12 and 13 as well.
Thank you so much. I'd be happy to do that. Chairwoman Vargas and members of the board, recommendations 10 and 11 go hand in hand. They are effectively to reallocate a portion of the Evergreen funding, $10 million to go to the Public Defender's Office so that we can use the $10 million of general purpose revenue that's currently in the Public Defender's Office to provide funding to the Office of Emergency Services, to provide resources for immediate relief activities. Those resources may, at a later date, be transferred to other county departments to support activities such as the fee waivers that we talked about here today. But at this point, those resources would be parked in the Office of Emergency Services and limited to the activities that are within the scope of authority of the Office of Emergency Services.
Thank you.
For number 12, we seek reimbursement. So this one, absolutely, we are already seeking the reimbursements. The state has already provided some of the support, and then certainly looking at FEMA. So that will continue to move forward. And then for number 13, I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
It is. Thank you. Madam Chair, I'm prepared to vote for the majority of this. There are some portions that I'm not comfortable with. If it's possible to bifurcate the vote and just segregate 2 or 3 items out, I would appreciate it. And I'm happy to tell you it'd be item 1, 2, and 3, and the rest, I believe, I'm fine with.
So at this time, what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and take a vote on all of them, and then we'll move forward. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward with that. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll do a voice vote. Supervisor Anderson?
No.
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp?
Yes.
Supervisor Desmond?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lawson-Remer?
She said yes, but you can't hear her. They can't.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chairwoman Vargas is also good at lip reading of all her other talents that she has.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas?
Vargas, yes.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes with Supervisor Anderson voting no, all of their supervisors being present and voting aye.
Thank you. With that, appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and move forward. Before we conclude the meeting, I just want to share with folks that I think many of you know that tomorrow was going to be my State of the County. I decided to postpone that because of the floods, and so I am inviting everyone to the opportunity to be part of the day of service. Information will be shared with everyone. The other additional item that I want to make sure that we share with everyone is that we are going to be requesting the state to provide us with the National Guard and also California Conservation Corps personnel to assist our region with storm preparation for the coming storms. Please stay alert. The warnings about what the storms are going to look like starting on Thursday are pretty concerning, and so I want to thank our OAS team for working so closely with the local cities. We will be having a press conference tomorrow. If you don't have sandbags and you live in these areas, please reach out so that you can get your sandbags and then you can get the information that you need. All right, thank you very much. With that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. The next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, February 6th at 9 a.m.